Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
First question. I'm guessing the heart-bursting story of the little boy at the swimming pool will continue to offer up images for a long time to access my heart. Thank you for that powerful reminder. Regarding the curves and swerves, am I understanding correctly that if not only applies to external events, as well as can be applied to navigating the many micro curves of the internal landscape while sitting?
Yeah, I think that's well put. Yeah, thank you. I mean, in some sense, we could say sort of anything that we might be tempted to overlook or turn away from. Um, Perhaps that's an indication that we should turn toward it. And we could take that as a kind of guiding principle and investigate and see if it by and large holds up, or at least that way we haven't overlooked things. I mean, the it's sort of like we naturally seem to want to get away from um dynamics that we don't like. I mean, who can blame us in a sense, but part of the path of practice is no longer being driven by aversion. So that must include becoming more open to what we are averse to, right? And there's a I mean, in the Zen tradition has various deep ancient ways of expressing this around preference, around like and dislike. When like and dislike disappear, the way stands clear. Um, it's only like and dislike that obscure the way. The way meaning the simple, wide open, boundless nature of things as they are here and now. So, yeah, I think that's well put. Thanks.
Okay. The next questioner has three questions. Would you just like one at a time?
Yeah, I think that's probably best. Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for today. Some questions about my body during practice. I often get the sensation that my whole inner body is swaying, fluid. It can be kind of extreme, but it's never a bad thing. My outer body may also be swaying, but subtly. Any insights into what's going on would be appreciated.
Yeah, it sounds like it's not impeding your capacity to be present. It sounds like it may be in some way deepening your sense of being here, being present here and now. So I would, well, a first pass at this would be to say that you're probably experiencing, some of the sort of beginning indicators of deepening concentration or absorption, sort of getting into a bit of samadhi. One way samadhi can show up quite often is with certain kinds of body sensation, especially if there's some kind of sense of an energy running through the body and through things. So that might be undulatory, which sounds a little bit like what you're getting. It can also be more pixelated, like sort of little sparks of energy kind of thing. It can also be more vibrational, but wavy can be one of the ways it shows up, and it could be more sort of rapid, wavy, like ripply, or it could be slower, wavy. But I mean, and like I said, it does sound like it's not impeding your presence, your awareness in the here and now. So I would assume that's what's going on. Just let it happen. One path is simply to let it be there and don't really pay it any attention, or just sort of let it be there, and it's sort of neither here nor there. Just let it be there. Another path is actually um, to see if there's something pleasant in it, and just rest, be with that pleasantness, and don't do anything more than that. Just be with the pleasantness and do nothing more. that can be quite interesting to follow. Okay, great. How about the second question?
Okay. I've been meditating with my eyes closed for so many years that it feels difficult to keep them open for Zen meditation. They seem to close on their own, and that is also where deeper experiences seem to happen. I would love to be open to eyes open. I would love any help with this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, kind of again, there's sort of a fork in the road, I would guess, that you can either go through the retraining of having your eyes open, and there will be a transition period when it's kind of uncomfortable a little bit, and your eyes keep closing by themselves because they're so used to that. But on the other hand, if you just make the determination, for example, for this retreat, for example, you could do this. I'm going to have my eyes open. You might get entranced in a positive sense. You might get into samadhi with eyes open relatively easily. Just the main thing about it is we don't look at anything. The pointing device, if you know what I mean, the part of our gaze that can look at a point is switched off. So there's the field of sight, and it's just like a wall, really. I mean, of course, in many cases during Zen meditation, it actually will be a wall, but it doesn't matter whether it's a wall or not. It's a screen, and we're just receiving it. We're not going into one point on it. It's just there. It is like a sheet. I mean, for example, right now I'm looking at this room, and it's a wall. It doesn't matter that it's 3D. It could be 2D. Just doesn't matter, and it's just arising, and I'm not pulled into it. There it is. But I'm aware it's there, but I'm not examining it. I'm just there. It is arising. So that's the sort of attitude and the way we do eyes open. It can be very lovely. The I guess I think for most of us there is one significant advantage, which is that we get more used to being in a state of clear awareness with eyes open, so that when we get up and go about our day, it's that little bit less distinct an experience than if we're accustomed to having eyes closed. And then it's quite easy if you're doing a lot of eyes closed meditation that kind of when you open your eyes, oh, you're out of your meditative state of mind, so to speak. And but that's not necessary. In some way we're training to stay clearly aware throughout the day in all activities and have our mindfulness or our clarity of awareness just clearly present throughout. And so eyes open is a good training for that, perhaps. um, the other thing you could do is just not bother, just stay with eyes closed. If you don't want to go through the effort of the transition, I would it's quite understandable. um, but it may not be that big. If you've done quite a lot of meditation already, you may just get it quite quickly once you just decide to, and then you'll have the choice. You can go either way. Okay, yeah. But I
Hey,
wouldn't go. So somehow, if you decide to go eyes open, go for it. Till you can get there easily. Then you're free to go either way. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, Dan. I spoke over
it's
you.
okay. Please speak over. Lastly, my TM mantra sometimes crops up. Should I just regard this like a thought coming up? I know it's all okay, but is it okay?
It's all okay. It's all okay. I mean, I suppose the ideal thing to do, yeah, would be exactly that. Just, think of it, take it as a thought. So if you want help with that, you might label thought, you might label talk, because it is a kind of speech in the mind. So you can just say talk, so that you're aware you're hearing inner talk. Happens to be in the form of a mantra. I mean, yeah, it's an interesting one. Yeah, I can see it in the way it sort of goes with, I suppose, you're used to eyes closed with mantra. So yeah, it might help. You might get the mantra a little bit less if you got eyes open. Yeah, just note, I'm hearing talk in my mind, but abbreviate that like hearing in or something like that. Hearing in, because you're hearing the speech in the mind, and keep labeling every couple of seconds or 3 seconds or something until you're clearly aware that that's going on, that you're hearing this, and it will dissipate by itself, and you come back to just all this. There's actually just such a broad, amazing field of awareness going on here and now. It's quite quite good practice just to be open to it all. Okay, thank you. Great questions for everybody so far.
Okay, any advice on how best to practice when facing a curve and either overwhelm arises or the strong thought, I don't know what to do, so best not to do anything as to avoid further harm, or whatever I do will be fruitless since this curve is so extreme.
Yeah. Okay. So let me just pause that out. So one was, let's say I face into a curve, whatever it may be, and it's overwhelming. Okay. So, well, when we're overwhelmed in any way for any reason, it seems like kind of the first thing we got to do is deal with being overwhelmed. The state of overwhelm, I guess we call it as a noun, isn't um it's a difficult one for a human being to operate from. We probably have tried quite a bit, most of us in our lives, to do exactly that. But it's actually, if we can, it's really, I mean, if we can create just enough space in our day to tend to the overwhelm, that is the first order of business. To it's very, because what we typically do, many of us, I think I've certainly done this a lot, is when overwhelmed, I try to, it's obviously not very nice to be overwhelmed, so I would, the first impulse often is to try to deal with something that I think is causing the state of overwhelm. But that's not really the ideal way from the point of view of practice, because that's actually acting from overwhelm to try to turn off the tap that I think is causing the overwhelm. But that's not the ideal metaphor, I know. But actually what we really should do, if we can, is tend to being overwhelmed, because we have reactions as humans that are sure triggered by external events, but they have their own dynamic as well. And so our reactions, even though they might be switched on by an external event, they have their own origins as well in our past experience, as well as in our neural circuitry. And um, they are our responsibility. They're our first responsibility, sort of thing, more than the things we identify as their triggers, if you see what I mean. Like that's the principle, for example, of Stoic philosophy, which has a lot to, it's a quite a close companion in some ways of Buddhism and mindfulness and Zen, because in the Stoic view, you know, we have limited control over external events, but we actually have a lot of control over our internal responses and reactions to them. Now, overwhelm is a reaction to probably some external events, and it may also generate further internal reactions to overwhelm. We may get overwhelmed by overwhelm. But where we can intervene and where we do have control is on our inner responses. That's the one area where we have significant control. But a lot of us haven't had a lot of practice in exercising that control, and this is really what the Stoics thought of as developing character. is developing our capacity to, withstand external events without having great reactions. They felt, and I think this is really quite in line with Buddhism, that, of course, we don't want to be unmoved automata, but we don't want unhealthy reactions that make it harder for us to live skillfully, wholesomely, helpfully, and that cause suffering for us and quite likely cause suffering for others as well. So that's a little note on when we're overwhelmed, what to do. Well, if we possibly can treat, tend, attend to being overwhelmed. Find out what am I actually experiencing right now? What is this state of overwhelm? It's a cascade of thoughts. It's a swirl of feelings. I don't even know what they are. So slow down. Give yourself some time and space to just start to get a handle on what's going on. Even to apply the label, I'm overwhelmed, to this condition. That will already help because it gives you some kind of bearing in what's going on. And then, some deep breaths might help, whatever your go-to quick emergency first aid thing for just instant calming, steadying, grounding, becoming present might be. And then we could little bit of unpacking. Where did this start? Oh, it was when I opened that email, or whatever it was. It was when I heard the news, or the phone call, or the interaction I just had. So okay, so now you're starting to actually understand the territory a little bit, and all of that is helpful, and all of that allows the executive function of the prefrontal cortex to come back online, and that in turn can speak with the hippocampus, and the hippocampus can communicate with the amygdala, which has done ringing the alarm bells so strongly. And it's okay, we can approach this in a different way. Okay, we're calming down, something like that. Okay, Dan, what was the next part? I think there was another part, wasn't there, after the overwhelm bit?
Yeah, well, maybe a similar, just different type of question.
Mhm.
Whatever I do will be fruitless since this curve is so extreme.
Yeah, okay, well, David Lloyd talks about this. That's sort of that's speaking directly to the bodhisattva path, the path of the being that has decided to commit themselves to the alleviation and even ending of suffering for all beings. I mean, talk about a vast task. All beings forever being liberated from suffering. And I won't quit until that's achieved. That's the bodhisattva's commitment and vow. I mean, man, that's a talk about a large task. So how to approach that without being overwhelmed by it, without being overwhelmed by the scale of it, or the incompletability, or whatever the word is, of it. The fact that I'll never manage it, but I'm still committed to it and I'm not overwhelmed. How does all that happen? Um, David Loy says it's good, and he talks about it in A New Buddhist Path, by the way. I mean, basically, it's an orientation. It's an orientation. It's like I actually am happy to be devoting my body, mind, heart to this project. It's a joyful thing to be giving my life to this. It's an act of generosity, basically. Of course, I'll mess up at times, and my commitment will waver. It will, inevitably, but I am nonetheless committed, and it's somehow a joyful thing. Um, the the key I guess, in there is the compassion that motivates it. Um, there's many of you probably know this, but there's been research on the difference neurologically between compassion and empathy. Empathy meaning essentially feeling what others are feeling and feeling the suffering of others, and compassion meaning being with the suffering of others. And what they find is that empathy actually wears us out, but compassion doesn't, because compassion has got this component of lovingness in it, which has a joy and an energy in it, even with the suffering. So it's not, it's an energizing thing. Sometimes people talk about compassion fatigue, but I don't know. I haven't read enough on it, but somehow to me that sounds like it's slightly a misnomer, a misapplied label, because it's probably empathy fatigue and not compassion fatigue, because the research that I've read it shows that compassion energizes, motivates, increases commitment, and gives purpose, which is all good, not fatiguing. I mean, we still need our rest, but and our nourishment and all that. But yeah, that would be a take on that part.
Okay. Is the brutality practiced by humans a result of their own suffering? And by honoring this suffering and dwelling in compassion and the present moment, are we taking a step to end that suffering and therefore the brutality?
Yeah, great. That sounds like a great way to parse it out. Thank you. Um, I mean, a probably similar but sort of slightly different lens would be the Buddhist three poisons that we come pre-installed with tendencies that have been evolutionarily selected for towards sort of greed and strong desire, towards ill will, hate, exclusion of groups, and of individuals, and animosity, aggression, and toward misunderstanding on different levels. The first of which is misunderstanding sort of what causes suffering and what causes well-being. So we tend to, because of the third poison, that misunderstanding, we tend to sort of listen to greed and obey it because we think it'll bring happiness for us. In fact, it can only bring temporary satisfaction that won't lead to great well-being. And we also tend to sort of agree with our aversion and dislike and aggression and and act both of them out because we don't understand that they aren't the path to well-being. They impel us to kind of grab for what we think will help us and what we want and what will please us, and to push away what we object to and think will sort of obstruct our happiness. And in many cases, we're kind of wrong about it. This is the Buddhist view, and that really following the dictates of greed and hatred does not lead to well-being. It leads to suffering for ourselves and for others. That's the standard model sort of thing of Buddhism, and that we need to understand that, and also then understand what the causes of well-being are. And they tend to be, I mean, it's there's a lot to this. So I'm summarizing very cursorily, but by and large, they tend towards relinquishing attachment to self. So serving ourself less tends to be what is the move towards greater well-being. So if you put that lens on the situation of why have we been so brutal all these centuries and millennia, and we don't know really how long. I mean, it fits, doesn't it? So I think it's very close to what you said. It's just slightly, I'm using slightly more, I suppose, sort of traditional Buddhist template there, but it's close, isn't it? That, you know, we suffer, we want to stop suffering any way we can. So let me grab this, let me get rid of that, and doesn't matter how that hurts others. Let me just get myself okay. Maybe I'll pay a little attention to those near me. You know, that's okay. But my circle of concern is quite tight and narrow, and so, you know, I mean, and then it's a complex history, but we have been group creatures, and you know, we've survived through being with a group. Therefore, we've got apparently some conditioning around, you know, identifying with our group, which means the opposite, opposing groups that are not mine. And apparently we've been very good at that. And as we see today, demagogues with questionable motivation can be very skillful at firing up that circuitry so that they know how to get people to dislike out groups very easily and get them to sense they're in a certain in group. And it taken to the extreme will demean and abuse and perpetrate great violence against out groups. Is that all right for now? I mean, you know, there's masses on this. There's a great field of study, really. You could try Sapolsky or Behave. It's kind of a compendium of a book on humans at their best and their worst, and the science of both.
Okay, should we move to the next one?
Yeah, thanks.
I can get easily overwhelmed with others' suffering. How do you balance that with your own personal suffering and having compassion? So big.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you. You know, honestly, I kind of wish more of us had that problem. You know, what would the world be if you know, it wasn't just, you know, handfuls of Buddhists and other wisdom adherents here and there who felt that way. If it was widespread and we really, you know, reoriented society like that. I mean, perhaps some societies have done so. Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. There seems to be an implicit sort of something in there about, is it okay to tend to myself in all this as well? And the answer is yes. And you know, early Buddhism is full of the phrase for self and others. You know, harm for self and others, suffering for self and others, well-being or sukha, happiness for self and others. It's often phrased self and others. So you know, again, like that question about the overwhelm, how, you know, we're probably not at our most effective when overwhelmed. And we matter too. You know, you are a beloved child of the universe. You are being created right now. You are existing. Your existence is being made, is happening right now. Whatever exactly it is, whether it's in some sense made of nothing, who cares? It's happening all the same. and is you, and you are wanted. You are beloved. Actually, what is the Dalai Lama always says it, the purpose of life is to be happy. I think I've read him sort of qualify that, say, but then the question is, what really makes us happy? But he means it. I think it's legitimate and fine and good for you to want to sort of fulfill you, whatever your gifts and your capacities and your energies call you toward. They're wanted. I think you can assume that it's good to be working towards their fulfillment. And that would include not getting so exhausted you can't do it. Or when you do get so exhausted you can't do it, you take care of yourself, please. Okay, Dan, should we go on?
Okay. Regarding curves and swerves, this particular 4-day, a lot of life things have come up I have to attend to, including seeing some clients, getting my car repaired, and some other things. I'm feeling frustrated and disappointed that this stuff is getting in the way of 100% participating. My mind is telling me that because of this, I'm failing at this retreat. But are these just curves in the path that I should go with?
Well, yeah. I mean, if there are things you can't really let go and postpone till next week, then yes, you must tend to them and take them as part of the path. Exactly. I think it's a good illustration. I mean, if you can clear out the time. I mean, if you probably can't now, but in future, I mean, if you can clear the time, why not? And if you can't, so be it. Sometimes appointments just have to fall when they fall, and it's too hard to change them, and it's totally understandable. So then you take it in your stride. You do your best to step out of the retreat context sort of consciously, so know that this is what you're doing. You're leaving your seat, and you need to, fine, and you tend to what needs to be tended to, and just the best you can stay present to what you're doing what needs to be done. And when you've done it, you come back in, bow to your seat, sit down, rejoin, check in what's going on after that minor commotion. It is a little commotion compared to this stillness. So you come back, you sit. How is it now? Be patient, be kind. Let yourself gently shed the momentum of the activity you were just engaged in and rejoin. And back in the ups and downs of a retreat. I think that would be very fine, really. Oh, and definitely no sort of self-talk around failing. God, you could sit here throughout perfectly and still feel you're failing. And you'd be right. I mean, we always fail. This is called practice for a reason. Nobody gets it. Nobody, I mean, Joan Rick Roshi, one of my teachers, would say, if we could really get all this perfectly, I don't think we'd be here at all. Is what she would say. Why would we sort of be having this life if we were perfectly, sublimely awakened all the way, all the time? There'd be no point in living. So we don't. Let's start from the point of view that you know, well, I'll never be much of a success at this, and that's okay. I'm just happy to be practicing, happy to be on the path, and part of my practice is learning more and more that it's okay that it's deficient. I mean, in a sense, it can't even be deficient. It is what it is, you know. And so, um, you know, there's one verse by Master Mumon in the Gateless Gate when he says, you know, 1,000 mistakes, 10,000 mistakes. Really, he means a trillion mistakes, maybe nothing but mistakes. You know, how can we be okay with that? You know, no matter how many curves, we're still going straight. That would be one perspective. As we go straight, we must tend to every curve. That's another perspective. Both equally valid practice perspectives. You sort of can't go wrong, really. You can only go wrong. Therefore, you can't really go wrong. It's nice that way because we'll never get it down. So you can't go wrong. It's okay. You can only go wrong. So it's fine. You sort of can't go wrong. See what I mean? It's nice. Okay, Dan, should we take, how many are left actually, Dan?
We just have one more.
Oh, great. Okay. Yeah.
Did you find that initially progress with stillness meditation practice was made principally on the mat, but over time this moved into daily life, non-sitting? If so, any ideas on how to initiate this? I ask because being in and out of Zoom all day, getting hit with Slack messages, etc., makes it hard to stay mindful.
Yeah. Okay. I just want to check that I'm understanding the last part about being in and out of Zoom. Was that about being on this retreat in Zoom, or was that like a normal day is full of Zoom and Slack and whatever? I'm kind of assuming it was the latter. What do you, does it look that way to you, Dan? Or
Yeah, he says, no, normal day at work.
okay, yeah, got you. Well, I mean, the thing is, you know, this is not a straight line graph. First of all, secondly, I think nobody would doubt that the opportunities for getting kind of deeper in our awareness are greater during a retreat, by and large, than in the midst of a busy, ordinary day for most of us, and that's just the way it is. And so it's great that we create these pockets of deeper practice time called retreats, you know, because they are an opportunity to go deeper, to, you know, release stuff and maybe make some discoveries, and that's fantastic. But not to be imagining that sort of wherever we get to in a deep retreat, now we're going to live that way throughout the rest of our lives. It just doesn't work like that. It's much more, um I can't think of a good analogy, but it's kind of like, um we are, hmm, we are, what are we doing? Sorry, I can't think of a good way to put it. Okay, it all just happens. Think of it as happening naturally, gradually, over time. It's just like more time given to practice. Somehow we will just start to be more aware through the day. Certain things can really help. One is doing retreats periodically. Another actually is the amount of time we devote to sitting every day, and whether it's in one chunk or two. If you do 90 minutes a day, anybody's going to be in good shape. It'll really change your days for sure. If you can't do 90 minutes a day, if you were to do an hour a day, no, 50 minutes a day, it could probably also have that effect. And it might be better that it was in two chunks, 30 and 20, 30 in the morning, 20 in the evening. That might be enough. On the other hand, people starting out with this practice, it'll make a huge difference when they're really just starting out, even to just do 15 minutes a day. They will feel that through their day. And the time may come where they stop feeling it. That may be because they've hit deeper levels in the psyche, and they're ready for more, basically. And so they up it to 25 minutes a day. Is that enough to make the difference? Maybe yes, maybe no. And so we sort of investigate, but we just do the best we can. Yes, there are also little kind of tricks that if you can get little reminders built in, like every time I'm about to sit down anywhere, no matter where it is, take one breath, then sit down. Every time I'm about to get up, pause, wait, take one deep breath in and out, then get up. Every time I'm about to go through a door, if it's not weird and there's other people around, stop, take a breath, then go through the door. See what I mean? Like little actions that are going to be repeated through a day. Just hit the pause, and a breath is enough. If a breath doesn't do it for you, just check your balance. Am I balanced? And then get up, and then sit down. Am I balanced? And then walk through the door. Just something that can serve as a reminder. If you're having a conversation, feel your feet. If you're standing and having a conversation, feel your feet. You'll find you can converse perfectly well, maybe better, if you're aware of your feet. If you're sitting in a chair having a conversation, be aware of your seat. What does it take to stay aware of my seat while conversing? It's 100% possible. And yes, you probably will actually quite possibly do it better while being aware of your seat if you're sitting. So little tricks like that. And just, I mean, really, it's the combination, I suppose, of determination, just keep at it, keep doing your practice, mixed with patience of, Rome wasn't built in a day, but it's good to be building it. Okay, I think that's all I got for now on that. Fantastic questions. Thanks, everybody, very, very much. Dan, I'm assuming that's it, right?
Yeah, it was. He just also asked if 90 minutes could be broken up throughout the day or just once.
Yeah, okay, good question. I mean, the only thing, no, I don't think it has to be all in one block, but it's quite good to have, if you can, to have a longer block, maybe 45, 50, 60 minutes as a block is very good. But we do what we can. If it needs to be 9 blocks of 10 minutes, I mean, that's pretty fantastic, actually. So we do what we can. Okay. Thanks.
Okay, a couple minute break and then back to Zaza.
Perfect. Thanks a lot.